All right, so basically, I'm going to give you a quick screencast overview of how I was introduced to RSpec, my exploration of it, specifically my creative exploration of it, with the focus on initializing RSpec and giving you some examples of some tests that I created and how I went from having some failures in my test to having success. As you watch this, note a couple of things. First and foremost, Bash is awesome. The terminal is great. You notice if you don't, you'll learn soon. And there's all sorts of ways you can customize it. Here I customized mine. And This Bash profile and the specific part of my Bash profile that you're looking at has some keywords that I've created, some functions, so that I can replace RSpec's standard commands with keywords that fit this example. I'll most likely keep them for a very long time. There's a link at the bottom of this post that shows you how to create your own and customize your own Bash profile, but we're not going to get into that for this post. I'm also not going to get into a lot of the documentation of RSpec. It does a lot of things, and they've done a really good job of having stellar documentation, and so you should really check them out, as well as some of their videos. This is more focused on my creative exploration of it and what I did to internalize some of these concepts. And so let's start with, first is first. What you normally do is you would run RSpec dash and net, but I'm going to just put in the keyword that I created in order to do that process. I'm in the directory TCB, which for those of you who don't know stands for taking care of business, and immediately it creates this RSpec file and the spec helper, as well as this folder. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the class, the model. If you already understand that, great. If don't worry about it. You'll get to it eventually. And this is where I'm going to be putting my actual code, the code that I hope to go to production one day. And then I'm going to also create a spec file, that will allow me to test, right? And so let me create that. All right, great. And so these are both created. Voila and voila. What I'm going to tell you up front is in this library, I've already created a lot of the code, so this can be a short video. So I'm going to copy and paste those things now. Most of it is commented out, and what that will allow me to do is to focus the time I have with you on what I've actually done. So. Great. Now that's in there. Let's start with the tests. They're the most important thing. So the process they recommend, which I really respect, is to create your RSpec file using something they call a domain-specific language. Notice it's not slang expressions, but this is a nice way of using more human language to describe what it is you want your test to do. And so in this particular case, I'm going to require relative, which is that Aretha class model I created. This allows me to connect the test to code. I'm going to instantiate a new class just so I can work with it, and you see that here. Then what I'm going to do is describe what that should do, and I'm going to describe specifically two methods and what I expect them to do. So it's pretty straightforward. It's describe, it's it, and then you establish your expectations. I wish all things were this straightforward and easy, but they're not. A lot of things take interpretation and negotiation and time, and to some degree code does too, but we're not going to cover that today. We're just going to show you an example of pretty straightforward methods. This was fun because this was an opportunity for me to take the lyrics of Aretha Franklin's Respect and creatively express them, not just through the tests here, but also through the class, and you'll see that in just a moment. But basically this test says, it ain't going to do you wrong while you're gone, and it expects a method to not be truthy. The same thing is true for this test, but what it does is it allows me to pass an argument into it. And this is an example of that here, right, where you have a method done you wrong, and then you have another method want to do you wrong. The want to do you wrong allows you to pass an argument into it, and as should be the case for all things, the done you wrong is absolutely false, and in my opinion, you should be in relationships where the done you wrong is always absolutely false. But that's neither here nor there. Again, this is just an opportunity for me to, creatively play with the song and some of the ideas that Aretha was singing about. And so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to comment out one of these so you get a sense of what it looks like to have 2 tests, but only one of them successfully pass. So I'm here, I'm inside, and again, what someone would traditionally do is they would do RSpec, and then they would, call the file. I created a keyword that allows me to do respect Aretha, which I think is just fun. And in doing that, it's going to run your code, specifically run your test against your code. Now, in this particular case, I found 0 examples, 0 failures, and that's most likely because I didn't save this file. So I'm going to go back and save this file and run it again. Cool. And so this is a nicely formatted RSpec, result. I like it a lot because it basically says this is, your class. These are the 2 methods. This method is passing because it's green, and this method is not passing because it's red. And it tells you specifically what the error is. It's expecting a method that's currently undefined, which means it doesn't exist. And if I were to go into quickly comment that and include it, now I can run that same test, and we'll see that we have 2 examples, 0 failures. So it's a pretty straightforward language. I played with some other ones that I thought were pretty cool. This idea of sweeter than honey, which is one of my favorite lyrics. I described it and basically said if it was true, again, gets to pass another argument. It's supposed to represent the idea of someone telling you whether it's sweeter than honey, true or false. And I can run the RSpec again, and I'll see I have 3 examples, 0 failures, right? And so again, I can just keep going through this process, and I can just over and over again keep adding, additional tests that tell me what it is I want this to run. Okay. Here's a really cool one that I got from exploring Stephen Baker's, Twitter feed. Stephen Baker is the person who created RSpec along with a few other people. Much respect to him. And this was just a fun example of me introducing him to a song you may not know about, which is Ghostface Holla, which gives a really a succinct and I think culturally relevant and progressive perspective on what it is to holla at young people and put them on to jobs and to work. And I was inspired by that because of what Flatiron is doing and connecting relationships. Building relationships with young people and putting them on to what it is they can do to best case scenario change the world, and worst case scenario get some work. So here we go. I'm gonna comment all these things out in rather so you can see them, and then boom, we run our final test. You see we have 5 examples, 0 failures. Ask Ghostface to explain. Steven, this is for you. Aretha, this is for you. Everyone else, hopefully this helps. Peace.